Good evening, Rabbi. Tonight we're going to talk about some of the current events that we're seeing in the news or whatever you want to call it, right? The press or whatever. So we see, right, that there's a lot of we call that saber rattling. You know what that means? Saber rattling. A lot of war sounds are going on, right? Some words of war, are being talked about. So we see that there's a struggle going on between Russia and the surroundings of Russia, which is Europe and America and all these nations, right? That are. So the truth is, that these events have quite a lot of significance. Why is that? Because the Chazal tell us something interesting about the end of days. The Messianic days, and the truth is that Russia is really an integral part of this whole scheme. So the question is why?
My grandmother used to say that.
That what?
That Russia was, the Torah said that Russia was...
Interesting. She probably heard about it.
Yeah.
So there is a tradition like that, and I'll explain to you why that is. Because the truth is, it says in the Chazal, in the words of the sages, that at the end of days, there's going to be two great empires that are going to remain. In other words, all the great empires that were before have already been destroyed. They don't exist anymore. What are we talking about? We're talking about, Bavel, Babylon and Greece. I mean, they do exist, but, they're basically, they're not really, right. They're not substantial. They're not, right, they're not relevant in the world scheme, these nations. And the truth is, the Rambam says something interesting, by the way, about some of these nations. For instance, like, Egypt used to be like a superpower. At one time, right? At the time of the Exodus, they were like the big superpower of the world, ruled over the whole world. So what it says about them, the Rambam, interesting. He lived in Egypt, by the way, himself, Rambam. He lived there. So he was a doctor over there. He worked for the king, for the sultan, whatever, all kinds of things. I don't want to get into the whole story, but, what he says is something interesting, about Egypt. He says that all the people today that you find in Egypt are not the original Egyptians. These are just Arabs over there today. Basically Arabs that came in and took over the country. But in honestly, right? The original Egyptian nation doesn't exist anymore. It was scattered and destroyed and uprooted. That's what the Rambam says. So today's Egypt is not the ancient Egypt. It's not the same thing at all. No connection between one and the other, right? So this, by the way, applies as well to these other nations, these empires, like you have Greece, and you have Persia, and you have Babylon, and all these things, right? All these empires, they're not the same empires that they were at that time. They're not the same nation anymore. There's people have been scattered and rearranged and all kinds of things, right? So the truth is that the original nations have been scattered all over the place, all over the world. As the Torah teaches us, right? There came two big kings, who was Sancherib, the Melech of Ashur, of Syria, and also Nebuchadnezzar, who was the king of Babylon. And they scattered the whole nations everywhere. So today, right, none of those nations anymore are the original nation that you had in the biblical times. So interesting, right? That because of that as well, Persia, right? So the empire of Persia, the Persian Empire, says the Torah, say the Chazal, that they're going to be one of the nations that are going to be left over before the Messianic days, one of the great empires. There's going to be two of them, right? One is Rome. Rome is going to be left over before Mashiach comes, and also Persia. So Rome, we know who it is, right? Rome is Europe, right? The European people, basically. That's what it is. The Christian people.
Who's going to be in charge? Cuomo?
Well, it looks like he's retired, whatever. But
yeah.
It's so.
But so Russia is out.
So now here's the thing, right? If you're going to tell me that Persia today is the Iran, which is the original site of Persia, so then they're not really such a relevant nation today. I mean, they are in a sense that they're terrorism. They're exporting terrorism, but they're not really like a superpower. I mean, they never really were in the last 1,000 years or more. They never had that kind of power. There were times where they did dominate, by the way, more, the Middle East. There were periods here and there. But it says in the Torah that two nations are going to be left over, two empires are going to be left over before the coming of Mashiach. One is Rome, that's Europe, and the other one is Persia. So if that's Persia today, right, Iran, it's not really such a big superpower, Iran. They're kind of like a big pesky nation, giving us trouble. But they're not exactly a superpower, and they really have not been, for the last many years. So then, who is Persia today, right? If that's the case, so the truth is, that today the Chachamim say, pretty much seems to be a consensus amongst many Chachamim, today's Persia is not Iran, so much. So then, who is it? It's Russia, right? Russia is the Persia of today. So the question is, how do we know that, right? Where, you have to bring some sources for that. You can't just hypothesize, out of your mind, make up things from your head. Right? You can't do that. So the truth is that, we spoke about this before, by the way, in the earlier lectures, but just to reiterate this whole concept is like this, right? That the truth is that the Russian people, if you look in the history, the white people, today, which are the Russians, they came from a different area. They came from the Middle East, and they conquered that area, of Russia. Before that, there was the Mongols that lived there, the other nations, that lived there. They came and conquered those people, and they overran them, basically, right? They took charge. They took control. So they are a migrant nation that came and took over that place.
Russians are wasps, though.
That's the thing, right? So Russians are not really wasps. And I'll explain to you what the difference is. Because Russia is Persia. So how do we know that? What's the proof, right? So what happens, it seems like, as we said, right, they migrated from the Middle East. They took over that area. So it says in the Gemara, Masechet Avodah Zarah, that Persia is going to be, as we said, right, one of the final empires. And talks about several things over there, describes several things about them.
So they're going to survive?
Right. Not only that, right, but it says in the Gemara, in Talmud, something even stronger, right? Masechet Yomah, if I remember correctly, it says over there that they're going to defeat the Romans also. In other words, there's going to be a period where Persia is going to defeat Rome. This is going to be exactly like right before Mashiach comes. They're going to conquer the whole world, the Persians, and this and that. There's going to be another resurgence of Persian the domination, hegemony.
The Soviet Union?
I'm not talking about an individual. I'm talking about the nation, right?
Yeah.
The individual could be anybody. I don't know. God knows.
Because he wants to take back the Soviet Union.
Right. Absolutely. But the truth is, that we're talking here about something even worse than that, which is to take over all of Europe. You know what I mean? So in other words, even Western Europe we're talking about. So, what does that mean? First of all, it says in Gemara, in Masechet Megillah, that the Persians, their symbol, the symbol of the nation of the Persians is the bear, which is the symbol of the Russians, right? You know that. The Russian bear, right? So why are they compared to the bear, right? So one of the things is, it says in the Gemara, by the way, that the Persians were very mighty warriors, like mighty soldiers, So the Russians are also very mighty, you should know. They're very, very, very strong soldiers, very powerful. They always were. The tradition was like that, that physically, the Russians were extremely powerful people. And this is exactly what we see today. The symbol is the bear, and as we said, right, all these things. But besides that, the truth is, right, that in the Torah, in the Parshat Noach, in the portion of Noach, which is the second portion of the Torah, after Bereshit, after Genesis, it talks over there about the children of Yefet, who was the forefather of the European people, basically. So over there it talks about the sons of Yefet, and the youngest son of Yefet is called Tiras. So the word Tiras, listen to the word, write the word Tiras. So it says Rashi over there, commentary on that Tiras is Persia. He was the forefather of the Persian people. You understand? So that's why people think, the Russians are like wasps. What does that mean? They're white people. So they are. In other words, they're related to the European people, but they're separate in the sense that Persians, have a different makeup. They have a different approach to life, to living. They have a different perspective in life. They have a different prerogative. And that's why, by the way, usually, always there's a struggle between the Russians and the Europeans because they don't get along. They don't have the same approach to life. There's always, they don't, even though they're both white, they're both, basically the same, more or less, on the outset, right? On the outside, you don't see anything different about. They never get along. They're always one against the other. You know what I mean? That's the way it is until this day. So what's the reason? Because Persia is a separate empire. It's not a part of the Roman Empire. It's not the same thing. They're against each other, right? That's the thing. They're rivals. So Rashi says, as we said, right? Tiras is Persia. Now comes, right? Josephus, right? Josephon, who was a historian, the Jewish historian in the Second Temple, towards the end of the Second Temple. He was, by the way, very close to the Roman family, the royal family, Titus and all these people, right? Vespasian and all these people, right, who were ruling at that time. Neron, right? These Caesars at that time, he was very close to them. Some people even say he was working for them, He was like their official historian or whatever, some kind of, a propaganda kind of machine they had going with him. To influence the Jews, to influence all kinds of things. But they say that, whatever he wrote pretty much is reliable in terms of historic facts, So the sages say that, by the way. So what I'm saying is like this, right, that Josephus, he also delineates all the nations. So when he says Tiras, which is, as we said, right, Rashi says it's Persia, what does he say? Josephus, who was at the end of the Second Temple, he said that's Russia. Right, so, right, you see that Persia and Russia is the same. That's the thing, He knew that, he realized that. So Josephus knew exactly what I'm telling you right now, that the real Persian people today is Russia. They migrated over to the north.
Going? That it's going to be the Holy Land against them?
So basically what we're saying is like this, right? Number one is that they're going to, it says in Yirmiyahu, Jeremiah, the prophet Jeremiah, in Memtet, chapter 49, it says over there, Imlo ischavum tzeirei atzon. What is that talking about? The destruction of Rome. So who's going to destroy the Rome? It says tzeirei atzon. What does that mean? The young sheep. Right? The young sheep. So why does it call them the young? Because as we said, right, that Tiras was the youngest son of Yefet. He was the youngest one. That's Persia. So therefore the Chazal say, who's going to be the one who destroys Rome? It's going to be the Persians, which is Russia. Got it? That's the way it comes out. You understand? So, according to this, they're going to come destroy the Rome. What does that mean? The Roman city itself as well. They're gonna destroy the Vatican, and all that, the idols that are there, the idolatry, goes on there, and all that stuff. They're gonna be the ones who destroy it, according to this depiction, right, that we just described. There's also another depiction, by the way, in a different place brought down in the Chazal. They say Tzeri Atzon, right, the young sheep. They don't say it's Persia. Who they say? It's talking about Mashiach ben Yosef. The Mashiach that comes from Yosef is called Tzeri Atzon. Why is that? Because he's the youngest of the brothers of the tribes. He was one of the youngest ones. So therefore, and also Binyamin together with him as well. They're the two youngest brothers. So therefore, they say that Mashiach ben Yosef is going to come and destroy Rome. So what do you see from there, right? Two different depictions. According to one, it's Russia. According to one, it's Mashiach ben Yosef. It seems like they're both right. You understand? Maybe a coalition. You never know.
Where does the West fall in?
So that's the thing, right? The West is Rome.
America is Rome in a sense?
That's the thing. Now, where does America fall into it, right? That's the question, That's the $1 million question. There's a lot of discussion about that. We talked about that, by the way, also, where America falls into that scheme. According to the simple meaning, Europe and America are really one entity. That's the simple interpretation, But historically, we have found that America is much more friendly to the Jews, much more friendly to Israel, much more friendly to Jewish causes, more sympathy, more empathy. But Europe has been always classically anti-Semitic, like the worst of the worst. Not exactly like America, So America is one place. I mean, they rebelled against Europe. That's the whole thing, right? They rebelled against that status quo that they have there. That's why they separated. They had a revolution, So America is a little bit different than the classic Roman structure. Not exactly the same thing. So we don't really know, right, how that's going to play out. Exactly, that whole scheme.
So the Torah doesn't know about that?
You know what I mean? But we know one thing, right? That when it comes to the classic Rome, which is Europe, they're finished.
But they're not really, they haven't been a threat to society in a long time.
Well, we're talking about, 70 years ago, there was World War II. It almost destroyed the whole world.
Yeah,
you understand?
They're pretty lame, since then.
Yeah, but they can re-emerge, believe me, when they want to. Now, look at and they usually do. Just a matter of time. But I want to show you something interesting, right, about this whole scheme.
You know that they're, I have to mention this to you, I don't know if you're aware. You probably are. Yeah. Their interpretation of the end of days is a little different. That's what that is, right? You can throw that in the garbage. So here we go, right? Here's what it says in the Zohar Kadosh about this whole thing. Look what it says. רבי אבא פתח, מי זה בא מאדום החמוץ בגדים בבוצרה? מי זה בא מאדום עתיד הקדוש ברוך הוא? So it says, הקדוש ברוך הוא, Hashem, is destined, right, in the future, ללבוש בגדי נקמה, to wear clothing of vengeance, to clothe themselves with vengeance, al Edom, on Rome, right, on the Romans, Edomites, right, Esav, the descendants of Esav. Why? So the question is, what's the big sin? There are many big sins, but the ultimate sin that they did, what was it? She'echarivu et beto, they destroyed the temple. The Romans, the Arch of Titus. Go and see it, right? If you don't believe it. The sarfu techalo, they burned the temple down. They burned down the sanctuary of God. That's what they did. Ve'glu et Knesset Yisrael ben ha'amim, and they exiled the Jewish people, into exile, all over the world, scattered them. That's what they did. This is their big sin, right? Ve'lasot lehem nekamat olamim. So therefore, it says God is going to do for them, against them, everlasting vengeance. Like no forgiveness. That's what's going to be. Zero tolerance, as they say, right? Why did God wait for so long?
There's a reason for everything. We have to finish our tikkun, our rectification.
Yeah.
We have to be ready for that. So look what it says, right? עתיד הקדוש ברוך הוא לדלרום, שהחריבו את ביתו ושרפו בחלו והגלו את זה, בסדר? עד שימצאו כל ההרים מערי העולם. So look what it says, right?
Yes.
That all the mountains are going to be full of blood of the corpses of Edom, because of the vengeance that Hashem is going to take from them. Right? לקרוא להם עוף השמיים עליהם. So what's going to be? Look what it says, right? Unbelievable. That the birds of the heavens are going to come and eat their corpses of all the Edomites, that have been killed by the vengeance of God. So he says all the wild animals are going to come and eat them, eat their bodies. 12 months it's going to be like that until they bury them. Look, but it says regarding the birds, they're going to be eating them for 7 years. That's what it says. Until the land is going to be so polluted, with the smell, the stench of those bodies. That's what's going to be.
What is the books of Ezra?
Let's go on a little bit. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
That's what it's written, right, in the prophet. It says over there there's going to be slaughter of God in Botzra. So what is Botzra? That's Rome, right? That's what it says, Chazal said. Why is it called Botzra? Because Botzra means to be fortified, right? It was a fortified city. So בטבע גדול בארץ אדום, עד שאותם לבושים יטמאו, זהו שכתוב, וכל המבושה הגלתי. Look, it goes on to say, right?
Goes on to say, what's the reason of this whole vengeance? Mishum shemimena yatz'u uchlusei ha'olam litzboa Yerushalayim. They came and destroyed Jerusalem, right? The Edomites, the Romans, right? V'hem hitchilu lisrof et ha'echal. They started to burn the temple, right? The sanctuary. Uvnei Edom meharsim et hachomot. And they destroyed all the walls, they knocked down all the walls of the temple. V'akru et avnei hayasod. And they uprooted all those, those stones, the foundation. They're the ones who did that. Zeu shekatuv zechor Adonai livnei Edom. Haomrim aru hayasod ba. Zeu adur. Look what it goes on. זה הדור בלבושו, באותם בלבושי הנקמה שעתיד ללבוש צועה ברוב כוחו. מה זה צועה? משבר. עמים תחתיך יפלו. So הקדוש ברוך הוא is going to break all those nations, They came together with the Romans, to destroy the temple. אמרו ישראל לישעיה, מי הוא זה שישעהו כל כך? שיעשה כוח הפתח ואמר, אני מדבר בצדקה, אני אותו שהוא רב להושיע, אותו שכתוב צדקה בשפט. So who's going to do this? He says, the one who loves justice and righteousness. Who's that? God, right? He's going to come and take vengeance on them for destroying his house, for destroying his temple. So he says, why? Also, what's another reason why? Brings another reason, right? Because they caused the Jews to be, downtrodden, in the exile, to bite the dust, basically. They caused the Jews to bite the dust, sent them into exile, and to fall on their faces. That's what they did. So therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem is going to be clothed with vengeance upon them, to take vengeance from them for what they did. Doesn't forget, there are going to be so many dead people, from them, They're going to be totally defiled. Again, he goes on to say, right? It says, look what it says, right? Unbelievable. That this was not a part of the portion of Esav. What does that mean? Jerusalem and Israel. It was not their portion. They came and conquered it and destroyed everything. ולא הייתה בגורל של אדם וכתוב, איש יודע צייד איש שדה, לא יטמא, באותם מלבושי נקמה, שעתיד לטמא בין אותם משמרים. כתוב בו, משום שהיא שוכבת לעפר, והוא רוצה להקים אותה. So now, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what he wants to do is to bring up the Jewish people, to make them stand up again, right? Upright. And therefore, in order to do that, he's going to destroy all of the Romans. That's the idea. That's what it says in Zohar Kadosh. Now, interesting, right? I'll show you Gemara, by the way, from Masechet Megillah, which talks about a little bit about this as well, to give you a little bit more of a context of what's going on here. Right? Give me a second. Here we are. Okay, so first of all, right, it says in the Masechet Megillah, Daf Vav Amud Bet, regarding Edom, right, the Romans, right, what the nature of this nation, what's with them, So Yaakov Avinu, when he saw in the prophecy, right, about them, that they're going to do what they're going to do with King David, right? Also, King David, when he saw what they're going to do to the Jewish people and how dangerous they are, so he said a prayer about them, David HaMelech, in Tehillim, in the Psalms. So it says, Al titen Adonai ma'aver rasha zemamo al tafek yerum osela. Don't allow the wicked to perform their will, to finish their will, to uphold their will. So, regarding that, right, what does that mean? That Yaakov Avinu, he prayed, it says in the Tehillim, that Yaakov Avinu, he prayed, Al titen levas asharat tabat libo. Don't allow Esav, the wicked, to do whatever he wants to do, right? His intention. So, what are we talking about? Which intention? Al tafek zo gemar. So it says, Zo Germania shel Edom. What are we talking about? Germany, right? It says, Germania.
Germania. Which is also part of Edom, which is part of Esav. You know, they're together. It's one family. Right? So, She'ilam alei hayu yotzin, because if they empower themselves, you know, to empower themselves, macharibin et kol ha'am kulo, they can destroy the whole world. In other words, if they organize, you know, they get together, the Germans, they can finish the whole world. This Gemara was written 1,500 years ago. It tells you all what happened in the 20th century. If they will get together, they destroy the whole world. Can you imagine? That's why they had to divide them, you know, to keep them divided. That was the whole scheme there. You understand? So,
so much for Mr. Gorbachev. Take down that wall. Yeah.
But now at least they have soldiers there, you know, because once they remove those soldiers, that's even more dangerous. So look what it says, right? That so why is it that Hashem keeps them, you know, like with a muzzle? That they shouldn't do harm? Because Yaakov Avinu prayed for that. He saw how dangerous they are, the Germans. You know? Another interesting thing it says, right?
Well, the Russians were the ones that conquered the other side. I mean, they're the
Yeah,
ones
there
that
was.
kept them,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
they kept
There's
them
always a
divided.
war going on between Rome and Persia. That's exactly the point, right? Mussolini was with Hitler. They were together. That was Rome. Huh? Okay, so now look at this, right? It says something unbelievable. ואמר רבי חמא בר חנינא, תלת מאה כי תהיה תגה, איכה בגימטריה של אדום, בתלת 195 מרזבי איכה ברומי. So he says, in those days, the way it was like this, unbelievable, right? 1,500 years ago we're talking about. That there was a rivalry between Rome and Germany, you know? Even though they're one nation, but there was rivalry going on, you know? Like the Yankees and, you know, and the Red Sox, you know, got a left deal, right? There was a rivalry going on. So there was a rivalry going on there. So they used to, like, you know, get together every once in a while. It seems like every year, right? Not only every year, every day. So they have some kind of rivalry going, right? And they battle each other every day. That's the way it was in those days. And because of that, they're not able to put a king over there. So what does that mean? Because they're not able to put a king, you know, that's what keeps them from going forth and destroying the world. That's what it says in Gemara. Unbelievable. Okay, good. Goes on here a little bit more in the Gemara. Another interesting, right, depiction. Now it depicts the ancient city of Rome, what it was made, how it was made up. What was the system going on there also, you know? So something interesting, right? Look what it says. So it says, Amar Ula, Italia shel Yavan. So first of all, it tells you, right, Italy, right, which is, you know, Rome, you know, same thing, right? The origin of this nation of Italy comes from Yavan, comes from Greece. In other words, they're offshoot from Greece, like a subdivision, you know. They offshooted, and Zekarak Gadol Romi. So it says Italy is Rome, right? In other words, Rome, the Roman Empire, and also the city of Rome as well. So it tells you over there, right? There was a big city of Rome. The ancient city of Rome was a very large city. So what was the size of the city? A very large city, right? 300 parsa, but 300 by 300, which is about 300 square, no, even more, right? We're talking about 900 square miles. Big city, large city. Yeah, even more than that, by the way. That's a very large city. Because parsa is 4 miles, so 4 kilometers. Mm-hmm. So basically, we're talking about 1,200 by 1,200, 1,200 by 1,200 kilometers. That was the size of the city. V'yesh ba shin samech shvakim. Look how many, it says, just how many markets was there in that city, right? 365 markets were there.
So why 365? Each day of the year, right? How many years we have the solar year? How many days we have the solar year? 365. Right? So each day had a different market that the king used to eat from there. The king, the Caesar. It was such a big city like that, very large. Big metropolis it was in those times. So, interesting, right? So he says the smallest market that there is over there, the size is, 16 kilometers by 16 kilometers, each market. The markets were huge. So look what it says, right? The Hadaba, Afa Pisheno Noladba. He says the one who lives there, even though he wasn't born there, he's not he wasn't born in that city. He gets welfare, Notel Pras Mazon Mimet HaMelech. He gets some kind of welfare stipend from the king, some kind of ration, some food ration, whatever, right? So there was also welfare going on there. It was a welfare state as well, which is, by the way, today also Europe. In Europe, you see there's a welfare state going on there. Not like America, right, where everything is, you got to work for everything. You don't get nothing for free, right? Almost, right? Almost. So, so he says also Afa Pisheno Darba Notil Braswan. So there was two things, right? If you were born there, and even if you don't live there, they used to send you also your portion, right? Mm-hmm. Your welfare. So what does that mean? If you live there, you were not born there, you get it. If you were born there and you don't live there, you also get it. So if you live now somewhere else, let's say you live in Amsterdam now, right? You're not living in Rome anymore. They sent it to you over there.
Yeah.
So they were a very wealthy society. They were able to do that. Support like everybody. Everybody get their ration. Can you imagine? So they were being supported by the kingdom. Everybody. They got their daily dose of support. Right? Look what it says. Unbelievable, right? In that city of Rome, how many bathhouses were there, right? Abano. How many? So it says 3,000 bathhouses they had there. Can you imagine? Such a large city like that? וחמש מאות חלונות מעלין עשן חוץ לחומה. So there was also a lot of smoke going on there, and it was going out of the city. It was built very well, but the smoke wouldn't stay in there. So it was like a smoke was going high. So it says Tzado Echad. Now that tells you the topography, right, of the Rome city, right? It says one side of Rome is Yam, is water, right? Is the sea, the Mediterranean. The Tzido Echad, right, Harim Gvaot. One side is mountains and hills, right? Tzido Echad Mechitza Shel Brazil. One side was like this is Trump's favorite, right? There was an iron wall over there. One side had an iron wall. That must have been this one, the side next to Mexico.
A big, beautiful wall.
Okay, so then, right? And one side was like sand and all kind of sediment over there. All kinds of things like this, right? So basically this was the size of Rome. So Rome was a huge metropolis, right? This whole thing. And the truth is, in the end, they conquered all of Europe. They had everything in their hands, basically, And then what happened was that later on it split up, the West, the East, the Byzantine Empire, which was Russia, that was Persia, that was Russia, So this is the way it was, right? So why do I tell you all this? The point is, right, that they're going to come, the Persians, and destroy all this infrastructure, right, that was once there. They're going to destroy Rome. That's what we're saying, So all these maneuvers that are going on, it's getting ready for something big.
You think so?
I mean, I cannot tell you it's going to be like, tomorrow or next day, I'm not talking about that, but it's basically, it's a precursor, to something much larger, because this constant, strife that goes on between Persia and Rome, it never stops. It's, until the end of days. So it says in Yalkut Shimoni, the Midrash, it says something interesting, right? That how is the final war going to, occur?
Yeah.
So what's going to be is that Persia
is going to come and conquer Arabia, which is like Saudi Arabia, God knows, right? All those, nations, right, over there. They're going to come and conquer. By the way, they're pretty close already. They're not too far from there. They already took Syria, now they can, and they're going to conquer also parts of Eretz Israel, the land of Israel as well. That's what it says. It's right there. So what's going to be is, first of all, they're going to destroy Rome. Once Rome is gone, there's nothing left to protect anybody anymore. So they're like the only superpower. They're going to go and now start spreading to other places until they conquer everything. That's what's going to be, according to this version of the story.
Does the Torah say specifically anything about describing them with the word red?
Oh.
That the reds will be
because Edom is red, right?
Yeah.
The Esav is red. He's a redneck. He's a redneck.
Yeah, red. Yeah.
That's what it is. So the red is Edom. We're talking about the destruction of the red. That's what we're talking about. So here we go, right? So now what are we saying? That Persia is going to destroy them. And the Rome is going to be wiped out.
Yeah. Okay, so
utterly destroyed.
So Israel is conquered, and then what?
So what's going to be is that at that time, when they conquer, all the way until the Middle East and this and that, it's going to come, right? He says the king of Arabia, it says in the Midrash, is going to go and take counsel with the king of Rome, the king of something like that, to see what to do, how to counter that. So he says then it's going to come the king of Persia and destroy the whole world.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? Almost the whole world is going to destroy. How do you destroy the whole world? Nuclear weapons. That's what it says. So it says when the king of Persia, which is Russia, destroys the whole world, the Jews are going to be afraid. Why? Because they're going to say, what's going to be with us, Maybe we're going to also get... Hashem is going to tell them, no, not you. This is not for you. It's meant for them. Not for you. That's what it's going to say. Understand? So that's what's going to be, right? Before Mashiach comes, this is going to be the destiny of these nations. They're going to destroy each other, basically. That's what's going to be, Comes this one, destroys this one. Comes this one, destroys this one. Until they wipe each other out.
Yeah, I want to read that passage to you.
So, give me a second. Now, here we go. Right? Don't read these heretical religions.
No, that's from your book. That's from our book.
Okay, so here we go. Right? Not really. I'm not really sure about that. Let's finish it off. Right? So what are we saying over here?
Yeah.
That this is the end of. So what's going to be with Persia in the end? Right? By the way, why does Persia have so much power like that? That's the question. Which is Russia. What's the reason why? Because it says in the history books, right? It says in the Bible.
Yeah.
By the way, it was in Ezra, exactly. That's where it is, right? In Ezra and Nehemiah. What does it say there? That they helped to rebuild the second temple. They were the ones who helped to rebuild the temple.
Yes.
And because of that, so why does Persia have the merit to destroy Rome? Because the builders will come and destroy the destroyers. They're the ones who destroyed the temple. They're the ones who built the temple. So therefore, they have the power to destroy them. This is the reason why. This is the whole thing. It's not because of military power or physical power. It's not the issue.
Sure.
The issue is everything is spiritual. Everything is merit. You understand?
Does this correlate with what you taught us tonight? When the Jews return to Zion, which they have.
Yeah.
And a comet rips the sky, and the Holy Roman Empire rises again.
There's no such a verse like that. I'm sorry. This is not. This is not from our Bible. Okay, so we got the idea, right? What's going on? So what's going to be is that once the Persia takes over everything, the only thing which will stop them is Hashem.
Yeah.
And Hashem will have to destroy them.
Yeah.
Which is Mashiach, by the way. Mashiach is going to destroy them.
So Persia is going to go after Rome, even before they create any trouble.
What does that mean, create any trouble?
Well, I mean,
there's always trouble going on.
There was always this prediction that the Roman Empire was going to rise again.
They don't have to rise again. They're still alive.
They're still alive.
They have to be destroyed.
But Yeah, but they're small cockers. You know?
Oh, well, they're ruling over the whole world. Small cockers.
You're
small
talking
cockers.
about you're talking about Europe as a whole.
Of course, they're ruling over the whole world. The whole world is in their hands. All the money's in their hands. All the wealth is in their hands. Everything is in their hands. All the political power, everything. That's what's going to be. Okay, thanks for coming. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen ve'amen. Chazak Baruch, be blessed with wealth, health, and happiness. That verse you read is not from our Bible. I don't know where you got that from.
So what are the books?
From the garbage can you got that.
What are the books of Ezra?
I'm sorry, it doesn't say that in Ezra.
Oh, it doesn't say that.
These are distortions, that are made by the heretics.
I see.
Those guys in the, those guys.
I see.
Chazak Baruch.